Hello, everybody. I'm Zenith Warrior Princess, the cutest of buns, and welcome to a very special episode of Owl Stretching Time. I am Zenith Warrior Princess, the cutest of buns, and I will be your ghost host for the evening. Normally, it is Kat and Doog who are reacting to all the things, but today's a special episode. I'm taking over. Ooh, Ghost Bunny time.
Is this revenge for us taking over your channel?
Yes.
Are we all gonna have to get sigils and join covens now with like buns?
Yes. You have to have a specific bunny that you like. Specific buns. A bun coven. A boven.
I called
Did you join the
Jackalope.
Easter coven? You bastard! That's what I was gonna call.
See, I joined the gay bunny coven. It is the best coven.
I joined the Bugs Bunny coven, so I get to pull pranks and shit.
And with that being said, how's it going, Kat?
Whew, it's going good. This has been an exciting series, and I'm glad that you finally caught up with the rest of us, so we can actually talk about this. It's been exciting listening to your commentary and everything, like episode by episode.
Yeah, for those unaware, I've been live tweeting basically my coverage of the episodes, and Kat's been eagerly watching, and I'm just like, oh my god. And so I've been, as soon as I finished an episode, I watched the Owl Stretching Time, and I'm just like, dang it, they saw this before me. This is good. How's it going, Doug?
Oh, it's going good. Glad we could finally talk with you without, worrying about spoiling anything.
Wait, spoilers? Spoilers everywhere, spoilers, but you already knew that. This is the spoiler channel, by the way. The reason this channel is called Zenith Crew is because I will occasionally take over and stuff that I want to talk about, and I wanted to talk about Owl House because it's gay, it is good, and I love it.
Remember, Zen's the landlord. Occasionally, she'll shake us down for money. So yeah.
Or appearances.
I mean, I do technically manage the channel. Kat and Doug do most of the work, but I do look in, and I can drop in and make comments and stuff. I am the ghost bunny after all. I'm just ghosting in. Ooh.
As long as you don't ghost us.
I am the ghost bunny.
Bunware.
With that being said, I think we should get into our overall thoughts about Season 1. Because Season 1 was very different, and I didn't really see Season 1 as it launched. I kind of watched it in a block when it came on Disney Plus, and Season 1 is really good, but it's a very different show than Season 2. So, Kat, what were your thoughts on Season 1 as it came out?
I was skeptical at first. The only reason I started watching this show is because my sister started watching it, and she insisted that I watched it, because apparently, to her, it was, right up my alley. So I decided to watch it with her while I was spending the weekend, and yeah, I was, really intrigued by it. So I started watching a few on my own, then I showed Doug, and I figured, hey, this is something we could, get behind. And then as time went on, the show started getting more notoriety. That's when the pandemic hit, and we had nothing else better to do but to watch TV. And of course, during that time we were doing Ducktales, but then as we're watching this, we're like, you know what, we really should do a live reaction to this too. So yeah, it's been great going through Season 1, and granted, Season 1 took forever to get done, the same way Season 2 took forever, but still, I do appreciate all the build-up and stuff. I like the adventure of Luce being in this other world, but not being the so-called chosen one, and I like how they keep trying to undo all of these, magical tropes, especially ones you see in Harry Potter. Plus, them just doing the unexpected and just being so, random but witty, and just, seeing this, magical adventure unfold. So first season definitely was great in that regard.
And Doog.
Yep, I remember we were in between seasons with Ducktales, so we were between seasons 2 and 3. We were looking for something, and obviously Amphibia was something that we wanted to check out, so we binged right through that. And then once we were done with that, Kat obviously suggested we try Owl House out, and I think it was like halfway through the first season by the time we got to it. So, we were kind of watching it a little bit. It certainly helped to have the Look Who's Talking segments with the owls that were admittedly obnoxious, but. It was kind of funny because we were making some of the jokes about them in our early stuff. But it was kind of nice having that little summary of what was going on, who's who, what's going, what's happening as far as story wise. Kind of sad we lost that, halfway through season 1. But yeah, I mean, obviously season 1's more filler. There's definitely some story stuff, but it didn't really. It's not like with season 2 where basically everything is story related in some capacity. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't as crazy about it at first. I think it took until like the second half of season 1 for me to really latch on to it.
For me, it was a little bit different. Like, I kept hearing word of mouth buzz on the show, and a lot of people are talking about it. I think I remember you talking about it, but also Tifa was talking about it. For those who don't know, Tifa is one of my editors, and a lot of my friends were just like, "You should watch the Owl House. Watch the Owl House," and I'm like, I don't know. I have a lot of stuff to do. I have a lot of stuff on my plate, and if you've seen the list of stuff that I have on my plate, it's pretty big.
Peer pressure, pressure.
But I sat down, I said, you know what, one day, let's just give it an episode, and I was hooked by the writing. It is very witty, it's very funny, and there's not a lot that, didn't make me laugh. Like, there was just, I identify with Luz so much, because I'm that kind of weird kid who's always doing those types of things. I have cat hoodies, and I, enjoy making snakes attack things, and I have confetti wherever I go. Don't ask.
You have a party cannon?
Maybe. But so it's like I identified with Luz from the beginning, and then we got to the second episode where it was going against the Chosen One trope, and it's like at first I was like, I don't know about Ida because she seems like she's not even trying to help. But it shows that, like, her unconventional thinking really helps as time goes on, and you realize why she was against certain things. And she's not perfect, but this is a group of flawed characters who grow and evolve in a weird, mysterious world that just I loved. Season 1 was, like you said, it was a lot of filler, but I liked that. And I think a lot of people do miss that laid-back tone, because when it gets to season 2, it's go, 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 because they didn't really have, and they lampshaded this in one episode. Oh, we don't have 20 more episodes for filler beach episodes. We can't do that.
I do love that commentary.
We can't just go off on another 20 adventures.
But it's like the first season really does ease you into this world, and it shows you a lot of these interesting side characters, and then eventually it builds up the relationship between Amity and Luz, and it builds up the friendship between her and Willow and Gus, and the school and everything that the Boiling Isle stands for, and it's really great world building. Wouldn't you agree, Kat?
Oh, definitely. Like, I like the whole look of the Boiling Isles. The fact that it all, like, takes place on the carcass of a decaying giant. Like, that in itself is, like, really cool. Like, almost Lovecraftian in a way. Like, including, like, the design of all the creatures there. They're just so weird and so out there. And they just, are so different from how you'd expect them to look like other like mythological creatures and stuff. Like some of the weird shit. Like sometimes it's like downright disturbing. Like look at Hootie. Like Hootie is so freaking disturbing in certain episodes, and like you think he's this cute little like owl tube thingy, but nope, he is like the most scariest demon thing in the aisle, and nobody knows what the fuck he is. So that just makes it all the more unnerving.
Hootie is best wing hoot. I will hear no objections. You don't mess with Hootie. Law is the crime is legal now.
I am your god.
I just remember that was the thing about the Look Who's Talking segments, is like, if Hootie wasn't in an episode, they'd like totally bash the episode. It's like 0 out of 10, no Hootie.
And I heard people from the beginning saying Hootie is the best character, and I'm like, from the start, I was actually gravitating towards Luce and King, because King is just adorable, and I love everything. I mean, it's Alex Hirsch as the voice, and he does a great job, but I love what they did with the character. It's adorable, he's fun, but over time, Ida grew on me, and Hootie just... Every single episode, Hootie got better, and it just... I don't know why, like, because he's disturbing at times, especially when he brings, the Porta Hootie, and when he takes off his skin, and, like, there's a lot of disturbing elements, but he still manages to, like, come through, and he fights bees, and he's, like, you can't defeat him. He's, like, a one Hootie army, and I love him. Doug?
So, I mean, obviously, to go off a little bit of what you said, first off, yeah, mentioning Alex Hirsch, there's a lot of Gravity Falls in this, given that, it's a lot of the same team, especially Alex Hirsch working on it, and I believe Dana Terrace was involved, and I think, to go off a little bit, you have like Matt Brawley and the guys in Ducktales. I think they all have a common point in having worked for Gravity Falls in some capacity at some point. So yeah, it's very much got the fingerprints of Gravity Falls all over it, right down to like you've got clues and all these hidden words and things throughout episodes. You've got, if you if you take the first letter of each title of each episode for a season, it spells out a whole thing. Like the first season is A Witch Loses a True Way. So, and there's that, and it actually, ties in. I forget what the other message was, with the words hidden throughout, each episode. But again,
I have it. Yeah, because that's the interesting thing is the show likes to sort of like hide their plot points and stuff in like the most obscure way possible. Like I said, like Doug said, the first one is taking the first letter of each episode to spell out a sentence. The second thing they do is they sneak cryptic words into each episode, like one word per episode, and they're all in like the language of the Owl House, so you kind of have to translate it, which you can easily. So the secret message from the first one was 2 witches torn apart, now alone, 2 hearts of stone, a curse of feathers and mud, a betrayal of blood. That was for the first season, and it pretty much gave away, Ida and Lilith's whole relationship, and what ultimately led toward Ida getting cursed as the Owl Lady. So it has that, like I said, it has that sort of Gravity Fall thing to it. Again, as what Doug was talking about.
And it's like, I don't normally like episodic shows, but like this is one of the good examples of episodic shows where each episode is self-contained, but it doesn't just reset status quo. Every single thing is in continuity, and you can watch things out of order, but the more you watch, like, things build upon each other, and it's like it really started to get me, especially when we started learning about the curse that Ida had, and it kept building from that. But then you have episodes like Understanding Willow and Adventures in the Elements, which really just like not only endear me to these characters, but show the depth that is going on. Because originally you think, oh, Amity's just this mean girl who's at school, but then there's more depth to these characters than you expect. And a lot of the show is about turning these tropes on their head or shattering your expectations as time goes on, because you think at the beginning that Lulu, or Lilith, I don't like calling her Lilith, Lulu is better.
Thank you, Hootie. Hootsifer.
Hootsifer. Lulu is Ida's sister, and throughout the entire first season, it's kind of like a competition or a rivalry between them about, like, you know, Ida wants to cure the curse on her own, but Lulu wants to help by having her join the Emperor's Coven, and she says that the Emperor can cure her. And we don't know much about the Emperor here, but Lulu is the antagonist for the season. And then it builds to a point where we find out that she's the one who cursed Ida, and there's this whole big backstory, and the emotion in those final few episodes is so big, and it really shows that the show is more than what you thought at the outset. Even with the clever writing and the witty dialogue and the great jokes and the characters that are all fun, there's so much depth underneath that I was hooked by the end of season 1. Season 1 is great, and I get that a lot of people wish it kind of went back to that more laid-back atmosphere. Unfortunately, things didn't work out that way because of Disney.
Yeah, Disney just hates episodic shows because, you know, it's easier to rerun filler and to, like, get kids hooked that way instead of, you know, dropping them into, like, these plot-heavy stories. And to me, that's just stupid, because it's like, just because they get dropped into a random episode doesn't mean they're not going to get hooked. Like, I ended up wandering into Doctor Who, like, toward this, like, 2/3 of the way into, like, one of the, like, the 5th season of David Tennant. And yeah, I didn't have the whole backstory or anything, but I was intrigued enough to actually go back and watch everything in order. So, at least from his run. So, yeah, I think they don't give, you know, kids enough credit in that regard. It just sucks that, you know, they can't give us enough of a chance to at least give them a decent 3rd season to go out on. It's like, like, they did that for Amphibia, but they can't do it for this. Like, really? I know there's also the whole, you know, homophobia thing too. Like, they say that's not the issue, but we all know better.
Like, initially Dana Terrence went to bat for Disney, but Dana has kind of flipped the lid, including Alex Hirsch. They went full scorched earth on Disney and basically said, like, look, you're going to be supporting these anti-gay policies. Well, I'm not going to go to bat for you because you're not supporting our gay show. It doesn't look well. And if you look at the Disney S&P practice video that Alex Hirsch posted, like, dear God, the stuff that they put up with.
I remember his very, angry post about Pride, and how it's like, oh yeah, you know, buy all our Disney Pride stuff, but, you know, we won't allow any of your gay stuff overseas.
And it, like, the reason Alex Hirsch post was basically all the stuff that he had to run by Disney S&P, which is standards and practices, and all the notes that they would give back. And one of the major notes was, like, you can't have Officer Blubs and his partner have their arms around each other. It has to be comical. It's like, no, they're buddies. Chill out. Like, that's the attitude.
It's guy love, don't compromise.
But there were some really bad, like, S&P notes, like, you can't say chub because that could be used as a sexual term, and you can't have the phrase bottles will be spun So that's why he chose to change things into, instead of that, not S&P approved on the flyer. Like there's been some amazing things to come out of this thread, and it's just, the more I think about it, it's like, yeah, things probably have progressed a little bit, but this is the stuff that Owl House must have gone through for each episode. Just think about that. And they say that this didn't fit their brand. I'm like, yeah, right.
Mhm. Yeah, it only got huge ratings like the first season leading into the second season. Then suddenly they start being more prominent with the LGBT, and then it doesn't fit their brand. Uh huh. Yeah, sure.
So, I one thing I do want to say before we move on is I really do love the way they build up Luz and Amity's lesbian relationship, and I love Ida and Rain's relationship as well. Rain is non-binary. They are amazing, and it's just like you see this relationship unfold over time, and a lot of it is in season 2, but like you do see the Luz and Amity kind of go from not really like liking each other to kind of being friends to being awkward around each other to Amity clearly crushing and clearly having the crush to the stuff that happens in the Grom episode, where they have their dance waltz together and they go to Grom together. Like, it's a really great progression. And honestly, not a lot of kids shows, heck, not a lot of shows in general, give their characters enough time to breathe and have a relationship develop naturally like this. I love Lumity. I this relationship is amazing.
It's Lumity.
Lumity?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Luz, Lumity. But whatever. Just I love this relationship.
Yeah, I love it too. Cause I was skeptical at first. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the whole enemies to lovers trope, but like sometimes they have like the enemy like portion of the lovers like be a little too evil. Like, I think back to like She-Ra, the Princess of Powers, because they did like enemies to lovers to the extreme, to the point where you didn't really want them to get to become like lovers at the end, just because of how evil the one side of it was. But this I think did a lot better, because Amity wasn't really evil. She was just under the influence of her parents and like the environment that she was forced to live in. And as she, was exposed to Luce and her weird ways, and she, actually got to socialize with friends outside of her, cliquey girl group and everything, she became a lot better and more open-minded, and then she just, dropped the whole mean girl persona altogether. So I can really appreciate that, that she doesn't completely like change her personality, but she, gets better. So yeah, she's not exactly how she was at the beginning, but she's still like a more likable person, like now, more so than ever.
Mm-hmm. And they do a great job of showing that progression. And I think one of, like, I like the episode where she gets trapped in the library with her and the books come to life. And, like, that's a really telling episode where we get to see her diary and her actual thoughts and the other perspective and how she thought Luz was a bully. And, like, there's some really interesting things going on. Throughout, and then again, and I was giggling and squeeing when we had the other library episode when she actually kisses Luz on the cheek, and just thank you, season 1 we had lesbians from the start. Thank you. Doug.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Amity in general, it's like there is a lot of baggage that she's got to deal with. So it's like, yeah, not only do we have her and Luz's relationship, but we also have to, we're also working on repairing her relationship with Willow. And I like that they don't, skirt around it. Like the episodes where, we're seeing her, devoting time to actually trying to repair that friendship are pretty big ones. Like you got the understanding Willow, what you call it. You got some of the episodes where Luce is off doing whatever, and then you have Amity and Willow actually legit trying to become friends again. Um, so I do obviously. I very much am for the Lumity relationship, but I also like that they're, not just focused on Luce and Amity, but also Amity and Willow.
I also really like that they focus a lot on her parental relationship as well. Like there's some really interesting dynamics. Willow has two dads, and they put it from the start. But also with when it comes to Amity, her father is working all the time and is so absorbed with work he doesn't really like have time for her, and there's like a rift between them. And her mother is an overbearing, awful, horrible human being of a witch. And yeah, like they in several episodes they showcase just how horrible her mother is and how she got to be this way. And the you actually get like a lot of changing views on Edric and
Emera.
God, and Emera, her two siblings. And I love them from the beginning, but like originally I thought they were just like the two cool kids, but they're kind of dorky themselves, and a lot of the season is just showing how the first impressions aren't correct. And as you go through the season, you see that with everyone. Your first impression of something is not what it seems to be. And this show, especially in season 1, does a great job of being like, okay, here's what you think is going to happen, and it doesn't happen. And I like that.
Yeah, definitely. Because I thought that the twins were going to be like the mean twins at the beginning, given how they were always like picking on her and invading her privacy and getting loose to like mess with her and stuff. But it's nice to see that they kind of did a 180, but they still retained their personalities. Like now they're like really protective of their sister. They want to like make sure that her and Luce work out as a couple, and like they help them out at every turn. So I'm really glad that they made them, protagonist in that sense, and not just another like obstacle slash mean girl students whatever for them to like face.
Yeah, it's another thing of generational trauma that Disney's been covering lately, and definitely like they weren't evil to start with. They're just rebellious, and I think because their mother, Mrs. Blight, she would focus all her attention on Amity, and kind of overlook Emmerich and Ed, and or Emma and Ed, and then they could kind of get away with what they wanted. But yeah, it's nice to see that they're actually good people, and that there's that spark of them actually really wanting to help their sister ultimately.
The other thing that I want to bring up before we kind of move over to season 2 is I really like the side cast. I think the school children are actually really strong, and while they don't appear in every episode, like Gus, Willow, and a lot of these side characters do a great job of hooking you in to the point where like Gus starts getting his own episodes, Willow gets her own episodes, and they grow and evolve. And I love Gus. Gus is, I gotta be honest, while I do identify with Luce, Gus is how I was before I transitioned. Just a dorky kid trying to make do with what he has, and I love him.
He's basically like the Mr. Weasley of this universe, with just how much he appreciates human junk, and even though he doesn't have the best understanding, like he's all for just just utilizing it wherever he can, and just like diving into the knowledge of it, even though it's not like essential to his education or anything. It's just something he genuinely enjoys.
I think it's interesting. Gus is much more of a humorous character in the first season, but once you get into the second season, he really starts to become like more serious, and you tend to empathize with him a lot more.
Well, he does go through puberty,
That
so
too,
I
yeah.
think that helps.
But no, I'm just saying there's a
'cause
lot less jokiness about him once he, when he gets into the second season.
Well, keep in mind too, he's also like 2 years younger than them, because he's like a prodigy, so he was skipped ahead in school. But that means he was a little less like mature. But now he's gone through like witch puberty, so he's at that stage where he's becoming more anxious and trying to be like develop his identity more and trying not to let his like fears and insecurities overtake him. So he's at that weird point, which the other, it's not that the others aren't either, but his is more prominent given that he's younger.
And I love that they show like he is very capable, and a lot of the time like he has so much power that sometimes he can't even control it. And a lot of like the focus is saying like illusion magic can be amazing, and they show how he is such a huge asset even though he doesn't really have offensive magic, and I love that. And then you get to the stuff with Willow and how like she starts off as this person who's not confident, who's insecure, who like doesn't believe she's capable, but is extremely good in the plant track. And throughout the season we see how she grows and gets more confidence, and by the end like she's running her own teams and doing her own things, and it's these characters grow and evolve. I also love Principal Bump. Principal Bump is a character who I thought I wasn't going to like initially, because he initially was kind of like a Harry Potter parody. The school was a Harry Potter parody, to be honest. But I think he really grew, and like they showed that, his palisman helps him see, and they give him a lot more character throughout the seasons, and I just love what they do with him as a character, because what started as, oh no, the choose he had is broke free again.
And now I feed. Well, what was it? I heard that initially there wasn't even supposed to be a school. Like Luz was supposed to just meet the other kids, who just happen to live on the Boiling Isles. But again, Disney likes to do their whole branding thing, and magical schools are all the rage nowadays thanks to Harry Potter. So they kind of insisted on a school-like setting. So hence why, the characters are now school chums, and a lot of these others characters came to be because they were part of the school. And I mean, that's both a good and a bad thing, I guess, because on the one hand, it means they had to include this cliche, but on the other hand, that means we get all these wonderful characters, not to mention the opportunity to kind of like rip to shreds all of like the magicalness of magic schools and all the cliches and stuff, and just make it as dark and as horrible as possible. Like, the whole detention area and the choosy hat and Basilisk like sucking kids' souls, and just, the lockers that like can bite your arm off.
I don't think. I think
whole...
the hardest I have laughed in the first season, or this show as a whole, was the episode with the Grudgeby match, and how at the end, like, Basha catches the rusty smidge and wins the game, and Luce is just like, "That's it? You just had to catch that? That negates everything." I mean, what a stupid rule. I'm just like, tell us how you really feel about Harry Potter.
Yep.
I also really love like the montage where they explain the montage with the montage. It's there's a lot of really good stuff, and it's like, you know what? I don't mind magic schools. Obviously, it's a big cliche. It's happened in everything. The Worst Witch, Harry Potter. Magic schools are kind of a cliche at this point. But I don't mind it because you have to learn somehow, and I think they did something really interesting with it. Like, I love the detention episode where they showed like mixing tracks, and just, they have a lot of interesting dynamics there, and they keep building Ida's legend of what she did at the school and how she was like this incredible deviant, and I love that. I love that they have the dog as one of the students, and there's some really funny dynamics that they bring to the table, and I always found myself laughing because it was never quite what I expected, but at the end of the day, these characters, while they were somewhat murderous at times, they cared about each other, and there was a lot of heart to this, and it was slightly cynical towards Harry Potter, but it was done from a place of love, and I loved how they kind of tore things down but brought new things to the table. And Lou's starting to get the ability to use spells with glyphs was amazing. And then you build up to this Grom episode where she's combining stuff and she blows up this monster, and the animation in that dance fight was amazing. By the way,
That's Dana Terrace's own animation from what I hear. And yeah, she wanted like very much to stay on in animation capacity within the show. So it's like you'll see her style frequently throughout. Like I think you'll see it in the first episode. You see it during the dance during Grum. You see it during Agony of a Witch. Frequently throughout the second season. It's like once you see it, you know it.
Is there anything you guys want to say about season 1 before we move on to season 2?
Just that it was a really good start to the show. It really does a good job of sucking you in, like making you think that it's just, a nice romp through a magical world before all, the dark plot shit starts happening that makes you really intrigued and, basically sinks its claws into you and you're wondering, crap, what's going to happen next? I'm going to have to start writing down clues like the Gravity Falls episode and just, put up my own board where I'm have a million clues and I'm like this is happening because of this and this is a conspiracy. Da, 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 da. So yeah, I love the show because of it, but I also hate it because it's now I stay up late at night thinking, oh my god, what if this is gonna happen?
I just remember we started watching this as BoJack Horseman was ending, and so it's such a shock to hear Beatrice Horseman's voice coming out of Ida. But it's after a while you start to see that there's a very distinct difference between Beatrice Horseman and Ida. And definitely Wendy Malick has made the character her own, and I love it.
It's kind of the same for King too. I had a hard time just distinguishing between him and Bill Cipher for a good while, but now it's I only hear King. I don't hear Bill anymore, at least for the time being.
Yeah. Both of them are very distinct because they are using similar tones, but King is a more cutesy-fied version, whereas Ida, I haven't seen BoJack Horseman, so I don't know. But I like what they did with the Ida and King. They slowly bring them as their mentor figures. King for the demon side and Ida for the witch side. And while they're unconventional, they really do help in the end. But yeah, that's season 1. I loved it. I was ready for the next bit. But we only got half a season at a time. So... which all had their own arc. So, Kat, why don't you give us kind of a rundown of season 2, and we'll discuss that first arc.
Yeah, so season 2 pretty much is divided into 2 parts. We have the first 10 episodes, and then you have the final 11 episodes. So I'll go through each of the first 10 episodes, just, the basic stuff and, the significant moments. And then I guess, since obviously everyone's heard our opinions, then you can chime in with what you were thinking during this time. So yeah, the first episode of season 2 was Separate Tides. It takes place pretty much right after Ida escaped from being petrified by Bellows. Lilith split the curse with her, so that way she wasn't completely overtaken by the beast. So now they both share the curse, but on a more muted level. This episode also tackles the fact that Luz is now basically trapped in the Boiling Isles because she destroyed the doors so Bellows wouldn't get a hold of it. So at the moment she's pretty much stuck. She's trying to help She's trying to help Ida and Lilith because right now they're powerless, and Ida can't, go to the human world to grab junk so she could sell. So pretty much it's up to Luce just to get them money just so they can, live from day to day. The important things that take place in this episode is Luce teaching Ida and Lilith how to use glyphs, because while they can no longer use magic, they can use glyphs the same way that Luce can, because apparently, non-magic users can access magic that way. And we learn not only about like the 4 main glyphs, but we learn that they can actually be combined to create new spells, which do show up later in the show and end up being rather significant at that. We also get to meet the Golden Guard for the first time. Like we only saw him briefly at the end of season 1, but like we don't really know anything about him. Like I honestly thought he was just another guard. I didn't really think much of him at first, but now we get introduced to him proper, and he has an annoying voice apparently. We know that he's definitely going to be significant later on. So what did you think of this one, Zen?
I really like this, if only for Pirate Luz, because Pirate Luz is best Luz. I love like she puts in a bandana and like she doesn't complain, like she just does her work, and even though like they're all harsh to her, she makes friends with all the pirates, and it's really fun. And it's a great episode. I like what she does, but I also like how she's like teaching Ida. I like the combinations of the glyphs. I think it's interesting how they build upon this mythology, because originally like Ida was the teacher about magic, but she knew more of a witch side. Now like it's kind of flipped. It's a role reversal, and Lulu is helping, and Lulu's the more studious of the bunch, and so they kind of worked well together. I like that dynamic. And I didn't like the Golden Guard at first, because God, he was a little bit annoying. He was a little prick. But I love how they went with this episode. Instead of hunting this beast, they saved the beast. And there's just a lot of really great moments in this episode. It's a very strong start to the season.
I like to call her Team Aqua Loose. That's
Team Aqua Luz, yeah.
That was a meme for a while.
And yeah, I do like how quickly Lilith like adapted to the glyphs and everything, and it was funny just watching Ida just carve the glyphs into her desk just willy-nilly. But yeah, it was interesting how they explained it and everything, and I do like the different glyph combos, because I know in later videos they point out exactly like which type of glyphs and how many of them together form certain spells. So that was pretty cool to like learn about that.
I find it interesting that, it's kind of a role reversal from, as you were mentioning before, Zen, Adventures in the Elements. Basically, the role reversal now, Luce is now teaching Ida the very same lesson that Ida was trying to teach Luce.
The magic is all around you. Also, when you left, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
Those words are going to haunt everybody after Obi-Wan's done. But that's for another time.
Obi-Wan, but
yes.
but I will see that eventually.
Eventually. So the next episode after that is Escaping Expulsion, in which we meet Amity's horrible, horrible parents. We already had a glimpse of how bad they are in terms of Willow's episode, Understanding Willow, because we knew that they're the reason why Amity stopped being friends with Willow, is because they didn't see any talent in her, and they thought it was a waste of Amity's time to be friends with her, so they forced her to stop being friends, otherwise they would have made sure she was expelled. Well, it turns out that they actually made good on that promise, because now that Amity is friends with Willow again, as well as Luce and Gus, it's apparently causing her to become distracted, according to her mother, which unfortunately leads to the parents lobbying for the 3 kids to become expelled. And because, they're on the parent council, they hold big influence because they're rich and everything, Principal Bump has no choice but to expel the 3 of them, so it's up to Luce to try to convince the mother to allow them back into school, but this unfortunately puts her in harm's way because they make this super mega ultra abomination weapon, which inevitably ends up falling into the hands of the Emperor. So this one both annoyed me, but I liked it too. because the big important things here is that we get to meet her parents proper, and they're kind of different than how I thought, at least in terms of the dad, because the mother's a bitch, like just like I thought she would. Like, she's horrible, but he's just like off chasing butterflies and like kind of just like has no idea what the hell's going on. It's kind of funny. But at the same time, too, this is where the crush between Amity and Luce becomes mutual on both sides. Because before it was clear Amity was the one that had feelings for Luce, and Luce was just oblivious because, you know, she's just like kind of the happy dumbass in that regard. But now, after Amity saves her from being destroyed by the Abomination, it's clear the crush is now like a two-way streak. So yeah, this was a good one in that regard. Like there was like so much that happened, and like so many like family dynamics, and just so much potential for like hilarity. What did you think, Zen?
I actually really liked this one. I wasn't really annoyed because like it was really interesting to get a glimpse into even more how she was controlling Amity. Her mother's dynamic, and her father is very absent-minded, and how different he is, and how he's more of a creative type. He's the one who makes the things. He's not the one who makes the decisions. And you get to see like the family dynamic. I like it. It does a lot more with Edric and Emira, and they help her. In fact, throughout this season, Edric and Emira are just like helping Amity out in the background. I love it. I love how they kind of like constantly are just egging her on and helping her, and I love that. But I do love the fact that, you know, Lou steps in to help her out, stop the expulsion, and in turn, they start falling in love. And I love every scene where they're both blushing at each other for almost touching their hands. It's just so cute. I love it. I love it so much.
Can we for a second talk about Bump?
Oh yeah, he was great in this episode.
It's like I'm mad at him for, you know, cowing down to Mrs. Blight, but it's just, oh my god, to watch him every time he has to, you know, stop Luce, Willow, and Gus from getting in, just how much it breaks his heart.
You know, he's like in tears, having to like, you know, turn them away, and it's like, oh, he really does love them.
Poor Bumpy. Like, Principal Bump is like a cross between Professor Dumbledore and Snape, and I really love how like he's kind of a villainous figure, but not, because like half the time he's just like, oh, she got away with murder, but it's okay. It's clever, you know, but then he really does care about his students. So it's like there's a really interesting Bump dynamic that I love.
She made me love teaching again after she left.
I will say one thing, the whole thing with Amity's mother, like, you know, using the necklace, like, it kind of reminded me of, again, in referring to Gravity Falls, the whole thing with Pacifica and her parents, because we learn later on that she's not quite the spoiled, like, brat that we know her to be. We see that her parents actually have her on a really tight leash, and every time she starts to act out of line, her father rings his bell. And the thing is, you don't know what happens if he keeps ringing the bell. You just know that she immediately falls into line, which makes you think maybe she is like that she's abused, like if she steps out of line. And it kind of reminded me with this case too, because her mom's an oracle, so she can like see into the future and everything. And theoretically, since she can like sort of be the voice in Amity's head, you wonder if she can kind of take over her mind or influence her deeply in that regard. But it's nice to see that like Amity like stood up to her and like even broke the necklace out of defiance. Like, and it's great to see her to continue fighting against her mother this entire season, because seriously, she's a bitch.
Yeah, like there's a lot of like big things. Like it, like you said, it's the Pacifica dynamic. In that one episode with Pacifica, I'm like, whoa. But here, like instead of just having it one episode reveal, it's slow, and then you uncover the depths of just how much she's been controlling Amity her entire life for like grades and everything. And I'm just like, man, this reminds me a lot of my dad, and I don't want it to. God.
Yeah, it's a shame because Amity seems to be like the golden child, and that she inherited her father's like really talented aspect of like abomination magic, but also like she's also smart and like good enough to actually get into the Emperor's Coven on top of that. So it's on the one hand it's great because she has an in to to do whatever she wants, but on the other hand she's basically forced in this direction, and you could tell her mother sees her as nothing more than a pawn just to push their products. So it really does create that unsettling dynamic there.
Yeah, like she's just using her, and it just I hate when people view their kids as property. Just hate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the next episode after that is Echoes of the Past. This one we get backstory, because I have been saying since the first season that King has to have a deal. Because and Eric would always fight me on this. He's he kept saying, "No, I swear to you, King doesn't have a deal," and I'm like, "Yes, he does." And this episode proved me right. This episode we actually sort of find out the origins of King, because he had for the longest time believed that he's the king of demons. And yeah, you could always say that it's that he's delusional, it's all in his head and whatever. But no, we find out this might actually be the case, because of course Lilith doesn't believe him in all that regards. He decides to prove it by bringing him back to the island where he was first born. But when they're there, they start seeing all these weird things, these weird symbols. There's this weird flesh-covered robot. King starts to have these repressed memories and stuff, and then things start coming to light that A, that he wasn't fully aware of, and B, did not have the full story on. So yeah, the big reveals with this is that we know where King was born, we know how he and Ida first met. And furthermore, we knew that his father was alive at some point, and something had happened to him to make him disappear. So yeah, there was a lot of basically there's this is a whole big giant mystery in this episode alone, and it's really unsettling too, just because of how little you know. And not to mention, this is also the episode where we get to see Hootie rip himself out of the friggin' wall.
Florida Hootie reporting for Hootie.
What did you think, Zen?
This is one of my favorite episodes of the season. It is so damn powerful, and it's just suspenseful because you don't know anything about King. We've built up they've been trying to figure out what King is for season 1, but they didn't really come to a conclusion. There's a lot of stuff going on about we don't know anything about King, but he knows a lot about demons. Here we finally get a little bit more backstory, and there's the evil robot guard, and this this place where the robot was keeping watch for years and protecting him, and it's just it just adds more mysteries, because we find out how they met, we find out something happened to his father, and there is something greatness destined for him, but we don't know what, and it's becoming this mystery for the season. I love that. Just you transform this character that could have been comedic and has been comedic into something that is much more.
I think the best part about this is just how much gets paid off from it later, because we see the mural of what looks to be his dad facing on a titan, but we learn the truth later that it's actually the opposite. We see this symbol and we have no idea what it means or what it does or anything, but it comes into play at the end, and we understand what it was exactly and how King had been in hiding this whole time. And then again we see how Ida had sort of built him up in to be the king of demons, basically just doing this whole play thing, when it turns out that he actually is technically kind of a ruler when you think about it. There's so much that gets paid off in this season alone. It's you go back and watch this and it's astounding just how much is oh, the answers were right there.
They're just within grasp, and yet I don't understand what they're trying to tell me.
I am going to say now, that one robot they brought back was a Jean-Luc. I feel like he's going to show up in the finale, and he might be important. It's a possibility, because there has to be a reason why they brought him back to the Owl House. And yes, I know he doesn't work without outside of being in that tower, but something tells me he's going to be important. Like, he has to be.
Maybe he, like, runs on blood. I don't know. We'll get to that when we get to later episodes.
So the next episode after that is Keeping Up Appearances. This was a frustrating one, I won't lie, because in this one we meet Ida and Lilith's mother, Gwendolyn, and it's obvious why she has a strained relationship with her. In fact, she has a strained relationship with both her daughters, because it turns out her mom is one of those anti-medicine, anti-vaxxers, those pro like natural medicine type people who buy into like scams about these like herbal remedies and whatnot, because she views Ida's curse as a debilitating disease that needs to be ripped out of her instead of a condition that's just a part of her. And that's pretty much the theme of this whole episode, is the mother gradually coming to the realization that she shouldn't be wasting all of her time trying to cure Ida, but rather understand her so she can stop, basically alienating her and making her feel less than, because, in her eyes, she's just a disease. And the same thing with Lilith, too. She ignores Lilith because she focuses so much on Ida, and it causes just, this whole, like, psychotic episode in Lilith that amalgamates into her first transformation as her own owl beast. So we get that whole thing with this. I won't lie, it was pretty upsetting for me to watch the first time, just because of like all the the correlations and stuff in regards to people with certain conditions, either mental conditions or physical ailments and stuff, just how they're treated, and people who are like on the autism spectrum. It just that was pretty much this whole episode in a nutshell. What do you think, Zen?
Yeah, I was kind of with you. I didn't really like the mother at first, especially because I'm just like, how can you buy into this person who says he has this cure, but doesn't, like, oh, you have to buy the next volume. It's like, it's so obvious that this person's a fake, but she so wants to believe, and I get it. A mother's love for her child is big, but, like, when you're trying to cure them, like, some things can't be cured. Some things, maybe we just need to learn to live with it. And this is coming from someone who is trans, who is mentally and physically disabled. I don't want to be viewed as if I'm a handicapped or a burden. I want to be able to work with people and try to still do things. I mean, it's not easy, but, like, we don't want to be viewed as the problem. And ignoring your other daughter just because you spent all your time and money on these fake cures is just, that was a lot. And I get it. I understand it, but at the same time, it's very frustrating because, I believe in science. I believe in vaccinations. I believe in actual medical science. I'm a medical student. So, like, this was very frustrating for me.
I can imagine. Just, like, every scene where she went back to that, like, whack job that was actually, 3 ducks in a man costume or something. I'm just like, are you serious? You're really going to take advice from this guy? Come on.
At least in the end, it's like, finally, Gwendolyn finally sees and listens, and actually, she and Lilith actually go off and, try to repair their relationship. And you see it's nice that Ida is finally, willing to let her into her life a little more.
Yeah, on the one hand, despite the fact that the mother came barreling back into their lives to cause chaos, like, she actually does end up, like, helping them in a few aspects, and actually, like, helps the plot move forward a bit too, because we find out, through flashbacks, that because of her insisting that Ida basically be operated on in order to remove her curse and stuff, that's what caused Ida to run away from home, and in doing so, that's how she came upon the portal box that she found and the key. They we still to this point have no idea where that portal came from. And Ida herself has no idea how it got there either. Like, she somehow sort of figured out how it works and is able to go in between the human and witch realm. But yeah, that's still a lingering mystery too. And I think it's going to tie into, what we find out later about, Philip and his brother. We also find out that, about Philip, because the mother mentioned that there used to be a human that lived in Bonesborough like hundreds of years ago. And that's what leads Luce on her journey to the next episode, when the library, where she finds out about Philip. And again, because of what happened with Lilith, that leads her to move back in with her parents to try to, come into her own. And ultimately, she ends up finding this knowledge that, helps Luce later on in regards to time travel. So, yeah, while this episode definitely was triggering in a sense, it actually does, get a lot done in terms of plot.
Yeah, especially, the start of the Philip Whitbane arc. Philip is a big thing, and it changes. Your perspective on Philip changes throughout the entire season. Just, wow. They did a great job with that.
Mm-hmm. So the next episode after that is Through the Looking Glass Ruins. There's actually two big plots going on in this, which, in my opinion, they could have balanced a little better, either made them their own episodes or, took away from one plot in favor of the other. But yeah, the point is, big things happen in this. One is that we follow Gus as he tries to impress a group of kids from Glandis High, and follows them to the Looking Glass Ruins, where they find the Calder Stones. These are stones that apparently can enhance magic for any of the Coven tracks, with the exception of illusion, since illusions aren't physical magic. Granted, we don't really get to see too much what they do, since we just see the kids mess around with them, but we know that they're there. We know that the Emperor's been looking for them, so again, I have a feeling this is one of those things that's probably going to come back in the finale. Either the villain's going to attempt to use them to enhance his power, or the good guys are going to find them to enhance their own power. Well, that's what I believe anyway. Because, you can't have something that powerful and not have it come back in the finale. And then the second plot thread, the one that everybody loves, is where Luce is trying to get into the library to find the diary of the human that Gwendolyn told her about. But in order to do so, she needs to have Amity's help. And of course, they're both trying to come to terms with their budding feelings. But unfortunately, it doesn't really go as planned, because a mouse eats the pages of the journal, and then Amity loses her job. But thankfully, Luce goes through all these hellish trials we don't get to see, and manages to get her job back, which results in their first kiss. Squee. Yeah. So like I said, this one was a little weird in my opinion, because it's these two plots should not be together. I don't understand why they are, but what did you think, Zen?
I liked it. I do kind of see your point about them not fitting together, but I think having Gus have the start to his own episode was the point, because up until this point, we really hadn't had Gus on his own, and I think this was a great job of showing his strengths and what he's going to contribute later, of how he can make illusions so real that people are scared and terrified by them. And that's his strength. It's it shows what's great about him. And yeah, it does take a little bit away from the library plot, but I think the library plot, it works because you're on the edge of your seat. You want to know more about Philip Whitbane, and then it cuts to the mouse eating the pages, and you're like, damn it. And you get fired, and you're like, oh my god, what's going to happen? Is this going to be the end of them? And they have the scenes I always do stupid things when I'm around you. Why do I do this? And it comes to this really wonderful ending where they show that the Echo Mouse can actually play back portions of the journal, and they have their first kiss, and I squeed, and I died. I died happy. This is how I became a ghost bun.
It's also a premiere of cotton candy hair colored Amity, with her purple abomination colored hair.
I love her purple hair. I think her hair looks great either way, but her purple hair is just
I think it's a lot better, honestly. It's more suiting to her, and I don't just say that just because I love purple. But I just, for me, it does feel more fitting. Plus, she's coming out from under the thumb of her mother, and the only reason she even dyed her hair green was because her mom liked to have the siblings, all looking the same. And so because the twins have green hair, she wanted them all to be, color coordinated. So this is her basically just branching out and saying, no, I'm not going to, fit your aesthetic. I'm going to go my own way. And, it's perfect that her hair is that color, not just because of her specialized ability, but it's also an LGBT color as well, which I think is really fitting.
It really fits her. I think it looks good on her as the episodes go on. They showcase more and more why this, the color scheme works. But I also love, the look on their faces when they first kiss, and she's like, I'm going to leave you alone forever now. And they're both like, I don't know what to do. What do I do? I love the awkwardness of it because that's how high school is. High school romance is messy and awkward, and you don't know what you're doing.
Nope.
It's so good. I love it.
And I will point out one other thing too is that in terms of the Gus subplot, he actually turns a former antagonist into a friend as well. Because what was it, Bartholomew? Yeah, he shows back up again, and he's actually being bullied by the kids from Landis because he used to go to that school, and we see his own insecurities in play, and it turns out that Gus is the one who is actually comforting him this time, and by the end of it, he actually helps him scare the others off with his illusion magic. So it was rather unexpected to see him suddenly become a friend, but I mean I like it. I mean the kid's still kind of a jerk, but now he's less so. And you can kind of see now where he's coming from with his insecurities.
Bartholomew has grown on me over the course of 2 seasons. At first I thought he was just a jerk, but then they showed more and more about him. And this episode really cemented, Glandis kids suck. Glandis sucks. Hexside rules. Hexside rules. The Glandis kids are all just we're gonna beat you up and kill you just so we can get our hands on power. That's how Glandis rules. I'm like, no, screw you, Glandis chumps. You got what was coming to you from the basilisk. Everyone survived, but you still got what was coming for you.
True that.
I forget if we met anybody from St. Epiderm.
I think Rain, but that's about it. So the next episode is an adorable episode called Hunting Talisman. So in this one, it's Palisman Adoption Day because of Bellows, basically all the Palisman wood has been harvested to near extinction. So because of that, they don't have enough to go around for the kids that who are due to get their own Palismans. So to make up for that, they actually get the Bat Queen involved. We hadn't seen her since season 1, and she brings along her own group of Palismans that she's been looking over all this time. And so she has this whole adoption set up to find out if any of the students are actually compatible with them. And it turns out a good number of them actually are compatible. It's actually quite surprising. Even Basha gets her own adopted Palisman, and it's a crab. How appropriate. But aside from that, is that several important things happen in this one. We learn the identity of the Golden Guard. His name is Hunter. He's actually the nephew of, Emperor Bellows. And we also meet his palisman, Flapjack, who's a cute little cardinal with a scar over his eye. We don't know quite what his deal is quite yet. Again, it's still speculation at this point, but it's clear he has an instant affinity for Hunter, who apparently has no magic. He has magic through his staff, but not magic in and of his own. But yeah, this is definitely a turning point for the Golden Guard, because now we're seeing him less as a minion and more as just a pawn of the Emperor. Because we can tell that he has his own interests and stuff outside of what he does for Bellows, but he doesn't roam far because his stranglehold over him is that strong. And then we also see Principal Bump's demon in action for the first time, because I'd always wonder why he had that demon on his head if it was part of his body, but no, that's actually his talisman, and it helps him see. And I actually think that's really cool, and I want that talisman. So what did you think, Zen?
This was an adorable episode. I love that they keep bringing back the Bat Queen, and I have my theory about the Bat Queen and who she is. But, like, you know, she's always protecting the babies, the palisman, and, like, the fact that, you know, they have an idea to, okay, well, they have these palismen who have been abandoned, let's give them to better owners, and it really is a good lose episode, because she's still conflicted about what she wants. And that's kind of a big theme for the first part of the season, is, like, she wants to have things both ways. She's torn between two worlds, and she isn't set on one thing, which is why, like, she hasn't, you know, after a while, she still doesn't have a palisman, you know? But it's interesting how, like, she gets the palstrom wood after this episode, and she's like, I'll wait to carve it when I'm ready. And it shows maturity for Luz as she's growing, but the fact that she goes out of her way to save the palisman and help Hunter in the process, like, it's a great Luz episode. But I love Principal Bump in this. I love what it brings to the table for him, and yeah.
Yeah, I do like that they kind of call out Luz on the fact that she has no real reason or direction in terms of why she wants to learn magic so bad. It's like she read it in a book, she thought it was cool, she wants to do it for herself. But what does she actually want to use it for? Like, I'm really glad that they did that. Because, like, so many kids say that, oh, I want to be a witch, I want to be a wizard, I want to do this, I want to do that. But it's like, why? Do you want to do it because you want to help people? Do you want to take over the world? Or do you want to do it just because it's cool? Like, I'm glad that they really pointed that out and showed, you know, the flaw in her logic. Because the whole reason she's stuck in this world is because she was so desperate to learn magic. And to what end, really? I mean, she even said herself that she's not even going to be able to do magic once she gets back home, because the magic doesn't work in the human realm. Also, apparently it's revealed that she's from Connecticut. So she's a New Englander like you, Zen.
Yeah, and the thing is, when they bring in some of the areas, it feels like Salem, Massachusetts, with the witch trials and stuff like that. And I've been to places like that on field trips. Like, that's how it is. People be cray cray, y'all. People be cray cray.
Mm-hmm. True that. So, alright, and then, hang on, sorry. And then the next episode after that is actually one of my favorite episodes, Ida's Requiem. So in this one, we actually get to meet a new character named Rain. They're non-binary, they're an old friends of Ida's, and they're the head of the Bard Coven, which is weird because they also have stage fright. I don't know how that works, but whatever. Apparently they're really, really good at bard magic despite that fact. And we learn about their past relationship. We learn that it was strained because of Ida's curse. We know that Rain has an inkling as to what's going on with the Day of Unity. Knows that Bellis is up to something. They even have like their own group to combat the Emperor, the Bats, which will later be renamed to Cats. I approve of both names. And Rain comes into Ida's life at a time where she thinks she's going to be losing Luz, as well as King, because they're hiding a secret from her. She has no idea what it is, but thinks that, you know, it's ultimately them preparing to say goodbye. To the point where she's even willing to, like, sacrifice herself for this cause and to take out these, the two of the Emperor Coven, to take out two of the Coven heads just for the cause. Because it turns out that while Ida was stripped of most of her magic due to the curse, she apparently has the power of death. In that when she plays music, she can cause everything around her to die and decay. So I thought that was really cool, and it leads to this really beautifully animated scene of her and Rain playing music together and basically killing everything around them, which I thought that was awesome. But of course, this leads to a big cliffhanger because Rain gets captured, and it's believed that they were like brainwashed or whatever. So we don't know what happens to them for a good couple episodes, but by the end we find out the secret that King was keeping from Ida was that he is legally changing his name to Clawthorn, so thus Ida adopted him. So he is now technically her son, and it is the most adorable, like, tear-jerking thing ever. So, yeah, what do you think of that, Zen? You had to have loved this episode.
This is another one of my favorite episodes. Like, I like so much about it. And, like, the thing is, Ida has gone from being their mentor figure to more like a motherly aunt figure. And I love it. I love how she's kind of in this role and she's trying her best. And she doesn't want Luz to leave and she doesn't want King to leave. It's like, these are my babies. I know they're not related, but I want them to succeed. It's so wonderful. Like, I love how she grows because, like, there was an episode with the Bat Queen, the first one, where she's just like, I would never have kids, and then it builds up to this, and it's just like, she technically has 2 kids now, and it's wonderful. I love the King Clawthorn thing. It's like, it doesn't matter who his father is, if they find him or not, because he'll always have Ida, and he'll always be a Clawthorn, and it's so sweet. But I also love Rain. They're amazing. I love the bard music. The animation for the bard scenes are so good, and just the stuff that they can do with it is interesting. And I love the way that, you know, the curse kind of works upon it and how they kind of utilize it later. It's just, this is a great episode.
I think it's also kind of interesting in the fact that it's like the first time after, basically kind of losing her magic that her instrument kind of becomes this conduit to, for her to be able to use magic, albeit tainted magic. I really feel like we should explore that a little more if we get the chance.
I mean, it did come into play with the final episode later on, but we didn't see the full effect because it got interrupted. But I do wonder if maybe that will be one of, like, the ultimate ways they take down, the Collector later on. Because I know, like, her arm got removed, but I still think she has the power to, unleash that type of magic. So it would be cool to see her do that. My only concern is that she might kill herself in the process if she does. So I hope that's not the case. So the next episode after that is, oh man, this one. Knock, knock, knocking on Hootie's door. So
Hoot, 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 hoot.
It's weird because we get, like, sort of a Hootie episode, but he's helping everyone else with their own individual plot threads. And he succeeds in the weirdest way possible. So basically, Hootie wants to be useful to the 3 because he knows that they're all stressed, they're all going through their own personal shit, and with Lilith gone, Hootie really has nothing better to do, no better way to divert his creative energies than to help them solve their problems in, like I said, the weirdest, most messed up ways possible. So he starts off by helping King, trying to figure out what he is, because of course King, despite being happy the fact that he's adopted by Ida, that he has this family, still wants to know who and what he is, because it's clear he's not a demon, or if he is, he doesn't know what kind. So Hootie puts him through all of these tests, trying to figure out if he's like a bug or a biped or a beast or something.
Worm.
Yes. apparently Hootie's a worm, so a bug type. We have no clue. We still don't know to this day what Hootie is, and we probably never will. But yeah, on the downside, they don't find out. On the good side, because King is so frustrated, this leads him to unleash his own inner power, which is basically supersonic. So he's able to do, like, a supersonic blast, which I think is really cool.
Demon puberty.
Yep, demon puberty. Then there's him helping out Ida. Of course, she's trying to figure out how to control the owl beast so she can actually, like, be useful, because she still can't do magic without doing glyphs. So of course Hootie's solution is to basically roofie her so she can get some sleep. But this causes her to go into sleep so deep she has this whole, like, mental clashing between her and the owl beast. But in doing so, we find out some backstory about the owl beast. We find out about its connection to the Collector, the big baddie, later on. And we find out about Ida's past and how the beast caused her to basically attack her father accidentally, how it caused her to break up with Rain, and is kind of the cause of a lot of things, but it is also clear that it's Ida's own fault for not accepting help and for running away from her problems. So by the end, not only does she reconcile with the beast and learn to work with it, she gets a new form. She's now Harpy Ida.
I totally called it. Professor Hulk.
And then the last arc, one of everyone's favorite, is Hootie trying to help Luce ask out Amity. Because Luce has been burned one too many times whenever she, tries to make friends or she has a crush or something, so she doesn't know how to approach Amity. So Hootie's solution is to force them together in a tunnel of love and basically have Luce inadvertently profess her love for her. And yeah, because of Luce's insecurities, this goes horribly, horribly wrong, to the point where Hootie believes he can't help anyone and nearly he does rip himself out of the house again, and nearly just takes the entire house with him. But thankfully, like I said, through Hootie's influence, his really weird influence, everyone's old plot things get resolved, and Luce and Amity are officially dating. Yay! So, what'd you think, Zen?
I love this episode. And it's like, we've had an episode kind of like this before in season 1, where we had, different perspectives from different characters, with King and everyone changing bodies. And I thought that was interesting. But here, not only does it continue the plot points of every single person, it's a hilarious Hootie episode. Hootsafer is amazing. Hootsafer is one of my favorite damn characters, and every time he just does something new where he just starts beating up people, or he starts shooting potions out his mouth, and it's just you don't mess with Hootie. You don't mess with Hootie. And then in this, he proves that he's such a great friend and a great person. I'm gonna take these bit by bit because each story is important. Let's start with Ida. I love Ida's story because the whole point was she wasn't allowing herself to sleep, and she was working herself into a frenzy. And I gotta be honest, being OCD and having anxiety, there have been days that I've done this. I can't sleep, and I've just worked myself into a frenzy and just got so worried about stuff. And the solution is just sometimes just take a chill pill, reconcile with yourself. It's not as bad as you make it out to be in your head. And this really hit home for me because it's it's a really big introspective episode for Ida, where she finally realizes, I have to take some responsibility. It's not all my fault, but, this beast doesn't want to be inside me, but we have to work together. And Harpy Ida is so... Why are you so hot?
Whoa, this is fierce.
I love Harpy Ida. I love this form. I love that, it's kind of a level up. She's able to do a magic thing without being magic, and it brings stuff later into other episodes. It's great. Doug, do you have anything to add before I continue on?
Like I said, I freaking called it way back at the end of season 1. I knew that she would eventually make the curse work for her, and this was just the greatest payoff, and I was so happy about it.
As they say in Hamilton, work. As for the beast stuff, I love that they break down the lore a bit more with how the beasts are breaking down. Okay, for demons, you have beast, biped, and bug, and you see that the fairies are a type of bug. Hootie is a type of worm who, if you dance, you insult his mother.
Why don't you talk about my mother?
This episode has some of the best gifts, especially the Hootie face. But I love what they do with that. I love that they introduce this lore and they show us more about the different things. And it's okay, well, you don't have any magic and you're not good at dancing, so we just have a blood test. And the blood test was inconclusive. And I'm that's foreshadowing.
Mm-hmm. Tight and bloody.
And I'm You got to save that blood for later.
Yep.
But like it's really good, and I love how like he finds his voice and he has his new power, and it's really cool. On the loose side, his power is he's Gunter.
Well, it's the same color scheme.
And then
Gunter, who told you you
Gunter.
could go through demon puberty?
And then over on the loose side, I thought that was really cute, and I love the misunderstandings because it's like she's just like, Amity's too cool for this. I can't. She can't see all this. Like, no. And Amity's just like, oh no, she's not into me, or maybe she's not gay. But then they hold hands. It's just like, kiss, you fools! Like,
Kiss.
Little trivia for that.
It's-
Apparently, when like there's that like really colorful background going on. I think it's one side is for the LGBT colors, and then the other side is like the trans and like bisexual colors.
Well, yeah, because Amity's lesbian and Luce is bisexual, so it makes sense.
Yep.
Yay! Everyone is a gay. Yay!
Everyone is gay. Gay. So.
And I just want to say before we move on, I love this episode. I love what they do with Hootie, but I also love that like the way they treat being gay in this universe. It's a thing. It's not called as much attention to. It's just a normal thing. Like you see gay couples over here, and then you see a skeleton demon over here. It's normal in this world, and I love that.
Mhm. Yeah, like even speaking of a future episode, even Amity's mom, who we all know is a hardcore bitch, even she didn't seem bothered at all that Amity was dating a girl. She was just bothered that she was dating a criminal, and she even says, we'll find you a better girlfriend later. So I'm glad that they don't have the villains be like full out homophobes just for the sake of it. That it's just an accepted part of the universe. Like they don't even acknowledge it.
Yeah, like this is a great episode. I love the bond between Hootsufer and Lulu. I love all the gifts that this episode gave to us for Hootsufer because it's just so much, and I love that it confirmed their relationship because, like, honestly, there's too many shows that end without them showing relationship. They, Officer Blubs, they couldn't do it. Korra, they couldn't do it. Here, they're just like, you know what? Screw it. They're gonna be girlfriends.
No queer
I
baiting.
love it.
Screw the rules. We're LGBT. We're LGBT. I screwed that up. Let me do it again. Screw the rules. We're LGBT.
Screw the rules. I have green hair. Now it's purple.
Now it's beer. Yay, beer.
So yeah, this one leads off into the next episode, which is Eclipse
Oh,
Lake.
excuse me. I have a letter here for King Clawthorn. Can you see that he gets it?
Oh yeah, we forgot about that part. Oh look, a bug!
Oh look, a bug! Hootie, you really need to stop eating the garbage.
Sure hope that was junk mail.
I love Hootie so much. It's like he's so bad, but he's so good. Like he cares so much about everyone, and he's trying, and he can be annoying, but like he's just so good and wholesome. I love him.
He's just terrifying. So this leads off into the next episode, which is Eclipse Lake, in which we get to see Amity go into her full-on girlfriend duties, because it turns out that Luce got sick somehow, and she grew mushrooms out of her head. I'm not sure how that works, but whatever.
She got the demon sickness.
Yep.
Ooh, and she wants to go on an adventure. I love how delirious she is.
Her hands are snakes.
Oh, by the way, Zen, you've seen Yu Yu Hakusho, right?
Yes.
All right. just a little food for thought. The next time that you watch the episode, look in the background where, with all the plushies, you'll notice Pooh from Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yay!
So yeah, this episode, we find out that the big key to operating a portal is with Titan's blood. So where do we find Titan's blood? Well, it turns out that Philip Woodabane talks about it in his journal, and he mentions a place called Eclipse Lake, in which there was supposedly like a sort of like lake that has it. It doesn't fully say how he got there or if he was able to find it, but they figured they would try their luck, because Ida's eager to try her heartbeat powers, King's eager to try his supersonic powers, and of course Amity wants to prove herself to be a good girlfriend because, you know, her whole upbringing taught her that if she wants to be if she wants to be loved, she has to be useful. So they all go up there, and about the same time, that's when Kikimora shows up. Now, we haven't really talked about her so far, but yeah, she's not been doing too well. She's been kind of getting screwed over, mostly by the Golden Guard, and now it's gotten to the point where she's become paranoid that she's going to lose her job. So she's trying really hard to find the Titan blood this time, especially because Bellows is now really starting to lose control over his form. In fact, this is actually the first time I believe we actually see his face. And while he does look normal for the most part, he is badly scarred, and it's clear that he's like losing his human shape and turning into like this weird blob monster. And of course, Hunter is eager to help his uncle, so he offers to go find the Titan blood, but of course he's messed up himself, so Bellows doesn't want him. But Hunter's determined, so he goes over to Eclipse Lake. That's where he runs into not only Kikimora, but also Amity, Ida, and King. So now it's become a huge race to get to the lake first and to get to the Titan blood before anyone else. And during that time, yeah, things get really messy in more ways than one. The biggest being is that we find out that the key that works the portal actually has Titan blood in it. And unfortunately, Hunter manages to get a hold of it and brings it to Bellows. Luckily, Amity had managed to crack it and spill a good amount of Titan blood on her glove, so now Luce has her own limited supply of Titan blood, while Bellows now has this broken key that barely has enough Titan blood. So that's the whole plot of this. What do you think, Zen?
This was a big episode. Like, this was, a lot happened in it. We had Ida finally being able to do Harpy on command and learning how it's done, and I love how it's like she kept trying to strain herself and push herself, and really she just had to ask permission from the owl inside of her.
Well, she had to make a deal, which included eating bowls.
Yeah, she has to eat rodents to appease the whole beast.
And I'm like, oh, well, that's clever. And I like, the stuff that they do with Amity, how she's afraid that, like, oh, Luz is gonna leave me, and it's just like a random string of gibberish saying, I love you, boop. It's like, it's Luz. She's not gonna stop loving you. Like, come on. But it is a teenage fear, and I like how they delve into that, and King is useful, and they delve a little bit more into Hunter, and it's a suspenseful episode, and how they keep kind of racing towards this point, and it's all dried up, but they finally find the blood, and it is really it's fool's blood. It's a really interesting episode. I love the ending more than anything, to be honest, because like it shows more about Bellows. It gives you things to speculate about, and it's just like, wait a sec, we had Titan blood this whole time, so we probably could have used it, but like we didn't know. But like it also begs the question of like how this specific portal was created. Was it Philip who created this portal, or like there's so much that I don't know, and I like this episode because it makes you speculate. But it's a fun action episode with 3 characters who don't normally interact that much, and I like that.
We also get to meet Amity's talisman. She has a cat named Ghost, who's actually based on Dana Terrace's own cat named Ghost. So, and he's adorable. I love Ghost.
I approve of Ghost Cats because I am Ghost Bun.
Of course you do. And I love the Dragon Ball Z reference. Like, that's become a meme.
I saw that out of context, like, way before. Like, that was probably, I think, when I started watching the series, and he was like, 10 years ago, oh my god. Like, and I started watching it, and I'm like, oh, god, now I feel old.
It's like, this movie came out 30 years ago. I saw this in theaters.
Dragon Clawsy.
That's the reality, though. Like, stuff that we think isn't that old actually is old now, because we're old.
Now we're just gonna be dabbing. We're damn millennials.
Like, I still like think, and in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking, like, oh, this movie only came out like a few years ago. Wait, that was 2000? That's 20-something years? Holy shit. Also, I want to point out there's some really good animation in this episode, particularly the fight between Hunter and Amity. Like, I love how Amity uses her abomination, like, sludge as, like, water bending. It's a nice reference to the fact that, Mae Whitman also voices Katara in Avatar. So I like that she kind of uses her, like, abomination magic the same way.
I love how they move this episode along. It's a wonderful, interesting episode. They have a lot of intriguing stuff, and they still keep the laughs coming. It's
a good lead-off into the next episode, definitely.
Yeah, this show just, like, keeps building and keeps building. This roller coaster ain't stopping.
Nope. And that leads to the last episode of this chunk of episodes, which is Yesterday's Lie. So, as I mentioned, Amity had grabbed a hold of the key, which broke and leaked Titan blood all over her glove. So, using a piece of said glove, Luce manages to make her own portal. Unfortunately, it's not very well crafted and doesn't work that well, because while she's able to enter it, she cannot emerge through any other sort of world. She can, however, see through sort of like windows and portals into whatever other world she wishes. And she can appear in like reflective surfaces like glass or windows or mirrors and stuff. So she decides to use this to her advantage and check in on her mom. Unfortunately, that's where she happens to spot herself. Or at least someone who looks like herself. Yeah, because since the first season, we've been getting hints that there's been somebody in the human world posing as Luce. And a lot of people have been speculating. We've had, like, hints from Dana Terrace saying that, she's called Dark Luce or whatever. Say, like, pretty much building her up to be, like, this really, like, evil being that's, like, trying to take over Luce's life, or it might have been a plant by the Emperor or something. Turns out it's none of that. It's actually a poor basilisk named V who saw Luce enter the Boiling Isles and decided to take her opportunity and escape from her horrible facility into the human world, where she now goes around looking like Luce and lives with her mom, and nobody is none the wiser. So she thinks that, she pretty much assumes that Luce isn't coming back, so she's trying to settle into her new life and stuff. But of course, Luce catches her. And V, unfortunately, needs magic in order to sustain her form. So the only way she's able to do so is with Luce's help, is to find some magical items in order to sustain herself. That's where we get a whole shit ton of lore and other possibilities that could explain a lot of Belos's deal, of Philip's deal, of, where this whole thing started. And this one, probably, out of this chunk of episodes, is the one that really got me to ugly cry hard, especially the ending. What do you think, Zen?
I love this episode, and when I rewatched the second block of episodes to get ready, I watched this first. It made me sob. It's such a very powerful episode, and it's all about, like, the prejudice of these people, because there's this person in town who's trying to get proof of the magical world and proof of witches and all this other stuff. So he's been setting up traps and cameras and everything legally everywhere. And it just shows, like, he doesn't care about the creature at all. He's just like, oh, this is the discovery. He's Ronaldo.
That's what I was saying. He's Ronaldo from Steven Universe.
Pretty much, and it's just like there's a lot of stuff happening, but it's like we finally get a reunion between Luz and her mother, and she finds out about the magical world. We have a confrontation between V and Luz because V's just like, you had it great. Why did you run away? My life has been nothing but suffering, and you had this, and you still ran away. Like, I kind of resent you for that. And like Luz has to kind of face to herself and talk to her mom, and her mom thinks like she's the one who pushed her away, and it's so heart-wrenching because like it's not her, but it's just like, and you get it, her mother never wanted to put this on her, but like she wants to be realistic and to give her daughter a better future, and it just, you understand both sides, but it's so heart-wrenching, and I love this episode so much, and it builds to something later, and just it's my heart.
Yeah, the part at the end where, you know, she's talking to her through the reflection of the car lights and stuff. Like, her mother's so heartbroken. She's trying to, like, take this in stride, but it's like now she just realized that, you know, her daughter's been missing all this time. There's no way she can reach her. She can't even touch her even when she's right there. And then to learn on top of that Luz basically ran away to this magical world just to live out a fantasy, like, it just made her feel awful, because now she feels like, you know, she drove her away, that, you know, that she pushed her too much or whatever, and it's like that wasn't really the case. It's like Luz was kind of out of control, and she kind of needed some stability. And yeah, it sucks that they were trying to like stifle her creativity a bit, but at the same time we see Luz does not think ahead, and she didn't give any thought to how this would affect her mother at all. Like, she had many opportunities to go back and explain to her and stuff, and not once did she ever do that. So again, this episode, like the one with the Palismans, does not portray Luz very well. But it points out some, like, you know, issues, and that, you know, if you're going to go into this magical world, again, what is the purpose? Are you escaping from something? Are you trying to learn something? Because, like, Luz is ultimately aimless, and this really points that out. And then, of course, we have, like, all the lore that shows up in this, too. We learn about the brothers that ran the town that Luz lives in. The magic has been showing up. We see the sigil of the Golden Guard. We find out that Ida's been sneaking into town, like, basically causing havoc, trying to, like, sell magical items for snails and stuff.
Leaving Hexus Hold'em cards behind.
Yeah. And apparently the whole theory with her as what was the name? What do they call her? Like
Yeah.
Yeah, because apparently they know her as Marilyn, and that's kind of a reference to this whole theory that she used to be Grunkle Stan's ex-wife. Because he mentioned that he was married to a woman named Marilyn, and she kind of just disappeared. So I really like that headcanon too, that like Ida and Grunkle Stan were once married, because they're both chaotic individuals in their own right. So I could see them causing so much havoc.
I mean,
We can cause so much havoc together.
Let's just say, honestly, like, between this and Amphibia and, you know, Ducktales with the Ramrod, it's like we just have like a whole multiversal thing going on. Oh, and Starverses, I think, should also play into this too. It's just like,
Yep.
you just have all of them just cross over, because it's just so leading to that.
Yep. And of course we know the whole thing with the Basilisk is going to lead into the Day of Unity, because that's how they figure out how to do the draining spell, and how to, like, you know, how to drain people using, like, the Coven sigils and everything. So, you know, again, payoff in that regard. So yeah, while this does end on a rather somber note, like, it is a good jumping off point for the next group of episodes. But we are gonna do that in a separate part, just because, again, this is like a 21 episode season, so we want to be able to cover everything appropriately. So we're gonna stop here right now, and we're gonna see you guys again in part 2 for the remaining arc. But I gotta say, for these last 10 episodes, this was a pretty good start, because it was a really good setup for what happens in later season. What do you think, Zen?
I definitely agree. Like, I really loved how focused this was, and how each episode, even ones that I thought were going to be filler, like, just kind of bled into the next. Like, knocking on Hootie's door, I was convinced it was going to be filler, but it ended up being one of my favorite episodes that was filler and plot, and they do a lot of really good stuff. Now, I don't like that they had to do it this way, because from what I understand, season 3 was not originally going to be greenlit, so they had to get as much as possible out the way now, and then it's been shortened to 3 specials. So, like, but what we have here is amazing. I love it so much. I love Amity and Luz. I love these characters. I love this world. It's very powerful. It's very engaging. And I remember, like, live tweeting, being like, oh my god, one more episode. One more episode.
One more. Just one more. Okay, 10 more.
Oh no, I've been sucked into your horrible fandom.
Good.
And there's more that we're going to talk about with, like, Good Witch Lazura and stuff like that next time. I asked this to be put into separate parts, mostly because it's like 100 degrees over here, and yeah, we're having a heat wave, and I can only go for so long. But I'm definitely looking forward to the second half. We're going to talk speculations about season 3. For my thing, I think season 2 is better than season 1. But we'll talk more about that as we go. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Doug?
I'm just saying now we've our first set of episodes, our code is Seek the Key, and then the next set, we Fear the Lock.
And keep that in mind for next time.
With that being said, I am Zenith Warrior Princess, the cutest of buns.
I'm Kat McBerry.
I'm Doug McBerry.
And I just want you to remember, what did you say about my mother?
Hoot hoot!
Have a good one, everybody.